Hello and welcome in another Mind Mastery video. Today's subject will embrace the description of the consciousness and how the consciousness relates to people, events, situation, and the world in general. So to start with, I've decided to use the perspective of phenomenology, and it is an approach both in philosophy and psychology to describe the experience and focus on the subjective way in which humans perceive the world and experience it. And to go deeper, it is not only the experience that phenomenology takes into the account, but also the perception, how individuals perceive the world, how individuals relate to other people and situations. Because without understanding the perception, we cannot really understand the experience, because if not the perception, if not the sensation, there would be nothing to experience in the first place. So there are two concepts I'm going to discuss today. I'm not going to go very deep into phenomenology because it's a very broad concept and there are many different ideas associated with it. But there are two main ideas which I want to share with you. One of them is called the object of the consciousness. So when you imagine the consciousness itself, when you imagine yourself as a subject, you experience everything that comes into your vision, into your perception. And each thing, whether it's an event, whether it's an idea, whether it's a person, that comes into that field of perception, it's called the object. So anytime I refer to the object in this video, I mean basically anything that you are able to perceive. Not only the physical object, but also the immaterial one, the social one, or perhaps the ideal one. The next concept I'm going to focus on is the spatial distance. So the spatial distance describes the distance between your consciousness, yourself, and the object of consciousness. So to give you a simple example, you might feel very close to someone who lives 500 miles from you, but you might feel very distant toward the person who sits next to you on the bus. So the spatial distance determines what is close to your consciousness, not in the physical sense. This mechanism operates a little bit like lenses. You can zoom in and you can zoom out. You can increase the spatial distance and you can decrease the spatial distance. So if you increase it, the objects of the consciousness will be more far away from your consciousness, and if you decrease it, they're going to be much closer to you. You will feel closer to them. And just like with a normal vision, if the spatial distance is too small, then obviously the objects are going to become blurry. You will not be able to see certain details because the object is too close to your vision, is too close to your consciousness. And the same goes in the opposite direction. If the object is too far away, then obviously you will not be able to even notice it, not even being capable of noticing any details about this object at all. So this mechanism of the spatial distance is usually quite automatic. However, we can influence it by our will if we need to. And there are two key factors which determine this spatial distance we create between ourselves and the object. The first one is the importance. How much of importance we place onto this object. How much we value a particular person. How much we value an idea or a situation. So in very short, the more importance we place onto a certain object, the closer this object will be to us, and the smaller the spatial distance will be between our consciousness and that object. The second factor that determines the spatial distance are our intentions, and if the object of the consciousness is a person, then also the intentions of that person will matter to us as well. So our intentions include things like our attitudes towards this object, whether our attitude is positive or negative, our attachment to this object. Do we feel the need to keep this object inside our space, inside our field of perception, and also what we are aiming to achieve by the interaction with a particular person, by adopting a certain idea, by adopting a certain attitude. So in short, if our intentions are positive, then the spatial distance between us and the object will decrease because it's something we are striving to do. We want to keep that object very close to us. We want to keep that person very close to us. And obviously that goes in the opposite direction. If our intentions are negative, perhaps for some malicious reasons we will want to keep this object inside our field of consciousness, but more likely than not, our negative intentions will be manifested by wanting to remove this object from our life, by, cutting our contact with a particular person, removing ourselves from the situation, changing the ideology, or whatever else. These two factors of importance and intentions are actually interrelated. They interact with each other. So for instance, if we place a lot of importance on certain person or certain idea, our natural reaction will be to become closer to that object, become closer to that person or an idea. And the same goes the opposite direction. Having positive intentions towards certain person or certain idea or situation indicates the importance of that object, indicates the importance of that person to us. So again, these two ideas are quite related. So that's about automatic way in which we create this spatial distance. And there's also another way, and it involves our willpower. So by willpower, we might be able to detach ourselves from the object, remove any associated feelings or attachments or associations with this object. And by doing that, we increase the spatial distance between our consciousness and that object of the consciousness. And this is commonly known as striving towards objectivity. So when people want to achieve an objective viewpoint, an objective perception, they are removing themselves from the particular space that object occupies in order to see clearly, in order to see this object in its whole manifestation, rather than perceiving only what they want. There's also an opposite process, which is striving towards subjectivity. And this involves actually considering what we value, what we perceive as important, what our intentions are to our particular ideas or people. And by doing that, we actually decrease the spatial distance because we consider our feelings, our emotional investment into something, our attachment. And this is very contrasting towards the idea of objectivity, because we actually consider ourselves and how we are involved with particular thing that we value and which we perceive as important. So as a conclusion, you might ask, now what do we do with this knowledge? Well, basically this understanding of how our perception works can be very, very helpful when we examine something or someone or some idea, because as mentioned before, by using our willpower, we can actually increase our ability to perceive things in an objective manner. And the same goes in the opposite direction, that certain things might require our attention, certain things should be valued by ourselves in order to, enrich our experience and give our life meaning. So it is our choice of whether we want to increase that spatial distance between consciousness and certain objects of consciousness, or whether we want to decrease it. But most importantly, manipulating the spatial distance can enable us to see more clearly, to see things as they really are. Because when we are able to remove our assumptions, our attachments, and our feelings, then we can see the objects as they truly appear to us. And we can experience them probably on a deeper level than in a scenario when we see them through the filter of how important they are, whether we like them, whether we don't like them. So that's something to consider as well. And lastly, this method perhaps can help us to examine our own mental life, our own psychology and perception, and how we view other people, how we view ourselves, and whether the values we hold are actually beneficial to us in any way, because we might be attached to certain things only because we are used to perceiving them as important, whereas in fact they might not be serving us anymore, they might not be beneficial to us anymore, but rather, again, we are doing it out of habit rather than looking at things in an objective manner. So I think that's it for now. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.